When I got promoted, the first call I got wasn't congratulations. It was debt collection from my mother. I'm Fiona, and I've spent 34 years being the good daughter. That title comes with strings attached, each one carefully woven by my parents into a web I couldn't escape. Until now. Darling, we simply must have you over for dinner tonight, my mother's voice crackled through the phone, cutting through my post-promotion high. Your father and I have something important to discuss. I was still holding the champagne bottle my colleague Anna had thrust into my hands moments earlier. Lead designer on the city's biggest urban renewal project in decades, my name would be on buildings that would outlast me. But my mother's tone had already draped a familiar weight across my shoulders. Can't we do tomorrow? I asked, knowing the answer. Tonight, Fiona, we insist. The drive to their house felt longer than usual. Each streetlight illuminated memories I'd rather forget. The college scholarships I turned down to stay close to home, the unpaid bills I covered when Dad lost his job, the countless times I heard family comes first when I dared to put myself first. Their house stood exactly as it had for 20 years, a 2-story colonial with peeling paint and dying rose bushes my mother refused to replace. I'd offered to help renovate it countless times. They always declined, saying they were comfortable with things as they are. My mother opened the door before I could knock. There's our successful girl, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She wore her good pearls, the ones reserved for manipulating bank managers and distant relatives. Dad sat at the dining room table, a manila folder placed precisely in front of him. He didn't stand when I entered. Congratulations on the promotion, sweetheart, he said, sliding the folder toward the empty chair across from him. We're very proud. I remained standing. What's this? Sit down, darling, my mother said, taking her place beside my father. We have wonderful news. I sat. The folder felt heavy in my hands, heavier still when I opened it to find their mortgage documents. The remaining balance glared up at me, £129 and £147.32. We've been thinking, my mother began, her voice honey-sweet, now that you're finally in a position to help. The bank's been difficult, my father added. Interest rates are killing us. I looked between them, these people who had shaped me into their perfect investment. You want me to pay off your mortgage? It's the least you can do, my mother said, as if commenting on the weather, after everything we've sacrificed for you. A memory flashed, me at 16, sobbing as I sold my art supplies to help pay for my sister Sadie's dance lessons. You're the responsible one, they'd said. You understand sacrifice. Of course, I heard myself say, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. I'd be happy to help, but I have one small condition. Something for tax protection. My mother's smile widened. My father nodded approvingly. They thought they'd won, just like always. Movement caught my eye. Sadie watching from the hallway, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. My baby sister, still living at home at 28, still caught in their web. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork, I said, standing. We can handle everything next week. That's our girl, my mother beamed, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, felt her squeeze my fingers in what anyone else might mistake for affection. Looking down at her, I made a promise, not to them, but to myself, a promise that would cost them everything. I should go, I said, pulling my hand away. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Of course, darling. We're so proud of you. As I walked to my car, Sadie followed me out. Fee, wait, are you okay? I turned to her, saw the worry in her eyes. I'm fine, Sade. Everything's going to be fine. You seem different. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Maybe I am. Driving home, I pulled over to send a text to an old number I'd never deleted. Damien, I know it's been a while, but I need a favour. Legal stuff. Call me? My phone buzzed almost immediately. Still practicing family law? What do you need? I looked back at my parents' house, barely visible in my rearview mirror. A very specific document, I typed. One that looks simple, but isn't. Like our parents taught us, always read the fine print. That night, I slept better than I had in years, dreaming of foundations crumbling and new buildings rising from their ashes. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a signature line and a notary stamp. Damien hadn't changed much in 3 years. Same leather messenger bag, same wire-rimmed glasses, Same way of studying me like I was one of his case files. We sat in his downtown office, morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Let me get this straight," he said, tapping his pen against his legal pad. "You want to pay off their mortgage, but you want the deed transferred solely to your name." "That's right." "And you want it buried in the paperwork so they won't notice until after they sign?" I met his gaze. "Is it possible?" He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Legally, yes. Ethically, that's another conversation." "I'm not asking for ethical advice." "No," he sighed. "You never did." He pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. "If this is revenge, Fiona, don't pull me in." "It's for security and legal clarity," I said, using the exact phrases I'd rehearsed. "Nothing more." "Bullshit." He started writing anyway. "You realise this will destroy your relationship with them?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "What relationship? They see me as their retirement plan, not their daughter." Damien stopped writing. "Remember when we first met? You were defending them at that dinner party." "They're just old school," you said. "They show love differently." I was wrong. I stood up, walking to the window. "Love shouldn't come with invoice attachments." "Give me 3 days," he said finally. "I'll have the paperwork ready, but Fiona..." I turned back to him. "Revenge has terms you can't always control." The next week passed in a blur of signatures and notary stamps. My parents signed eagerly, barely glancing at the documents. My mother was too busy planning renovations, talking about new curtains and kitchen cabinets. "Just sign here," I said, pointing to the last page, "and here." "You've always been so good with paperwork," my mother beamed, her pen flowing across the line. "Remember how you used to help with our taxes?" Yes, I remembered. I was 15. My father signed next, patting my hand. "We knew we could count on you." Sadie watched from her usual spot in the hallway. After our parents left the room, she approached the table. "Something feels off, Fee." "Everything's fine," I said, gathering the papers. "Just boring legal stuff." "Then why won't you look at me?" I forced myself to meet her eyes. "Trust me, Sade. Please." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I always have." That night, Anna came over with wine and takeout. "You're being suspiciously quiet about this whole thing," she said, pouring us both generous glasses. "There's nothing to say." "Really?" "Because Damien called me." I froze mid-sip. "What?" "He's worried about you. Says you're planning something that could backfire spectacularly. Damien needs to mind his own business." Anna set down her glass hard enough to slosh wine onto my coffee table. "We are your business, Fee. We're your friends. And whatever you're planning, it's eating you alive." "I'm fine." "You haven't been fine since you were 12 years old." She grabbed my hand. "Just promise me you know what you're doing." I squeezed her hand back but said nothing. The truth was, I didn't know what I was doing. I only knew what I had to do. 5 days later, I opened my mailbox to find a large envelope from the county recorder's office. Inside was the deed to my parents' house, my house now, with only my name listed as owner. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "The mortgage payment cleared. We're thinking of repainting the living room. What do you think about sage green?" I stared at the message, then at the deed in my hands. Everything was legal. Everything was signed. Everything was exactly as I'd planned. So why did victory taste like ashes in my mouth? Damien called just as I was pouring my second scotch. "It's done," I said before he could speak. "I know, I got the confirmation." He paused. "Are you okay?" "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because we care about you, and because revenge is like a boomerang. It always comes back around." I hung up without responding and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my parents were planning renovations to a house that was no longer theirs. They were probably sitting at their dining room table, the same table where they'd handed me their mortgage papers, thinking they'd won again. They had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my phone and called a locksmith. I need all the locks changed at an address, tomorrow morning if possible. It was time to send the boomerang flying. The locksmith finished just before noon. I watched from my car as he packed up his tools, the morning sun glinting off the new brass deadbolts. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Thank you, sweetheart. Your mother is planning renovations." I didn't respond. Instead, I waited. At 5:47 p.m, their silver Camry pulled into the driveway. My mother stepped out first, carrying paint swatches from the hardware store. My father followed with bags from Home Depot. I watched through binoculars from around the corner as my mother's key failed to turn in the lock. She tried again and again. "Norman," she called, "something's wrong with the lock." My father tried his key. Nothing. They rang the doorbell as if someone might be inside to let them in. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Call a locksmith," my mother said, her voice carrying across the quiet street. 20 minutes later, a different locksmith arrived. I could see my mother gesturing animatedly as he examined the lock. He shook his head, pulled out his phone, and showed them something on the screen. That's when the screaming started. "This is impossible!" My mother's voice shattered the evening calm. "We own this house." "Ma'am," the locksmith said, "according to county records, this property belongs to Fiona Lopez. I can't let you in without her authorization." My father slumped against the porch railing. There must be a mistake. "Call Fiona," my mother demanded. "Call her right now." I watched my father dial my number. I let it ring through to voicemail. He tried again and again. My mother began pounding on the door, her pearl bracelet clicking against the wood. "Fiona, we know you're in there. Open this door immediately." I wasn't in there, of course. I was in my car, watching Karma deliver its first installment. A police cruiser rolled up 15 minutes later, responding to neighbours' calls about the disturbance. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw my mother's face contort as the officer explained they couldn't help with a civil matter. "We raised her!" she screamed as they were escorted off the property. "Everything she is, we made her!" A memory surfaced. Me at 13, overhearing my parents at a family gathering. "We raised her well. She'll pay us back in full someday." Well, here was their payment. My phone buzzed again. "Sadie." "What did you do?" she demanded when I answered. "Check your email. I sent you a copy of the deed." "They're standing in my apartment. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad looks broken." "Good. Good. That's all you have to say." "They sold their daughter one last time," I said, my voice steady. "I just sent them the bill." Silence stretched between us. Then, "I don't know who you are anymore." "I'm who they made me, Sade. Isn't that what they always wanted?" She hung up. I drove home to find Anna waiting outside my apartment, arms crossed. "Your sister called me." "Of course she did." "They're homeless, Fee. They have options. They have savings. They have their precious reputation to lean on." "And what do you have?" she asked, following me inside. "An empty house you'll never live in." I poured us both whiskey. "I have proof." "Of what?" "That they never loved me. They invested in me. There's a difference." Anna took the glass but didn't drink. "And this proof, was it worth it?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. A local TV station, they wanted to feature me in a segment about women breaking barriers in architecture. The producer sounded excited, mentioned my recent promotion, the Urban Renewal Project. "We'd love to film at your home," she said. "Show our viewers the woman behind the designs." I looked at Anna, who was watching me with sad eyes. "Actually," I said, "I have the perfect location in mind." After Anna left, I sat in my darkened apartment, scrolling through messages. Missed calls from my parents, texts from Sadie, a single message from Damien. "You okay?" My mother's final voicemail played. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you. This isn't over, Fiona. You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming." I deleted it and poured another drink. The TV producer had been right. This would make a great story. Successful architect, innovative designs, breaking glass ceilings. They'd film me in front of my parents' house, my house now, and talk about building futures. They'd never know I'd just demolished my past. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. "Your parents are with me. I'm their lawyer. Expect papers in the morning." I smiled into my whiskey. Let them come. I'd learned from the best, after all. Everything in writing, everything legal, everything signed on the dotted line. The game was just beginning. Sadie showed up at my apartment unannounced, clutching a cardboard box of old photo albums. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "They're staying at Aunt Marie's," she said, pushing past me into the living room. "Mum's having anxiety attacks. Dad barely speaks. And, she whirled on me, and that's all you have to say. They're our parents, Fee. Are they? I gestured to the box. What's all this? Sadie dumped the contents onto my coffee table. Photos, journals, old report cards scattered across the surface. Evidence, she said, her voice shaking. I've been up all night looking through everything, trying to understand. She held up a photo. Me at my high school graduation, standing rigid while our mother adjusted my honours sash. Look at your face here. You're not smiling. Why aren't you smiling? Because Mum had just told me I couldn't go to MIT. Family needs me close. I never knew that. You were 12. You weren't supposed to know. Sadie picked up one of my old journals, opened to a dog-eared page. Dad lost his job again. Mum says I need to skip the architecture summer programme to help with bills. I hate them sometimes. I hate them so much it scares me. She looked up. You were 16. Put it away, Sadie. No. She grabbed another photo. Here's Christmas when you got that scholarship. Mum's not even looking at you. She's looking at the cheque. I poured myself a drink. Why are you doing this? Because I need to understand. She slammed her hand on the table. Was I blind? Was I just the stupid little sister who never saw what was happening? You were protected. I made sure of it. I didn't ask for protection. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I asked for a sister who trusted me enough to tell me the truth. My phone buzzed. Another message from a relative I hadn't spoken to in years. They'd been coming all week, ever since my mother started her whisper campaign. Did you hear what she's telling people? Sadie asked, wiping her eyes. That you're unstable. That you manipulated them. That you're having some kind of breakdown. Let her talk. She's destroying your reputation, I laughed. My reputation? I just made Woman of the Year in Design. I'm leading the biggest urban renewal project in the city. My reputation is just fine. For now. Sadie picked up another journal. But Mom's good at what she does. She's already got half the family convinced you're crazy. The family that never once asked why I was paying their bills? That family? Sadie fell silent, flipping through more photos. Finally, she looked up. So what now? You sit on their house forever? Is this the win you dreamt of? Before I could answer, Anna burst through my front door. Your mother just called me. Wonderful. She's hysterical, Fee. Says she's going to the media about elder abuse. I rolled my eyes. With what evidence? She doesn't need evidence. She needs sympathy. And she's really good at getting it. My phone rang. Damien. I put it on speaker. They're filing a motion to sue, he said without preamble, claiming elder financial abuse and coercion. Sadie's face went pale. Can they do that? They can try, Damien replied. But Fiona, they've hired Patricia Maxwell. My stomach dropped. Patricia Maxwell. The shark of family court, known for turning simple cases into media circuses. Let them come, I said. But my voice wavered. After everyone left, I sat among the scattered photos and journals, evidence of a childhood shaped by manipulation. My phone kept buzzing with messages from flying monkeys. Distant relatives and family friends suddenly concerned about my mental health. A new email popped up. The TV producer, asking to reschedule our segment. Given the current situation, she wrote, perhaps we should wait. I clicked over to Facebook. Someone, probably one of my mother's friends, had commented on the Woman of the Year announcement. Ask her about stealing her parents' house. Some role model. The comments section exploded with family drama. My professional achievement buried under an avalanche of personal attacks. My phone rang again. My boss, Gary. Fiona, he said carefully, we need to talk about image management. I closed my eyes. This was what my mother did best. She couldn't beat me legally, so she'd try to destroy everything else. A text from Sadie lit up my phone. Mum's giving an interview to the local news tomorrow. Dad's going along with it. I'm sorry, Fee. I can't watch this anymore. I need space. From all of you. I looked at the photo still in my hand. 16-year-old me, eyes dead, holding a cancelled cheque for my dream summer programme. Behind me, my mother smiled brilliantly at the camera, one hand gripping my shoulder like a warning. The game had changed. My mother was right. This wasn't over, but neither was I. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. My mother sat in the front row, perfectly coiffed, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My father hunched beside her, looking everywhere but at me. Patricia Maxwell stood before the judge, her voice dripping with practiced concern. Your Honour, this is a clear case of elder exploitation. These parents who sacrificed everything for their daughter's education. Objection, Damien interrupted. Counsel is editorialising. The judge peered over his glasses. Ms. Maxwell, stick to the facts. I watched as Maxwell presented their case, painting me as an ungrateful daughter who had manipulated her ageing parents. But when she finished, Damien simply stood and presented the paperwork. Every document meticulously signed, witnessed and notarized. Furthermore, he added, Ms. Fiona's parents are both employed, of sound mind, and only in their 50s. This isn't elder abuse, it's buyer's remorse. The judge took exactly 12 minutes to review everything. Case dismissed, he announced, already gathering his papers. The property transfer was legal and binding. Next case. My mother's wail echoed through the courthouse. This isn't justice! Outside, reporters clustered on the steps. I pushed through them without comment, their questions following me down the street. Fiona, how do you respond to allegations of family betrayal? Did you always plan to take your parents home? What do you say to claims you're having a mental breakdown? I made it to my car before the shaking started. My hands trembled so badly I dropped my keys twice before managing to unlock the door. Need a ride? I turned to find Anna leaning against her car. I'm fine. You're not fine. You haven't been fine since this started. Get in. She drove us to her apartment, poured 2 glasses of wine, and waited. They lost, I said finally. Did anyone win? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a message from my boss. Saw the news. Take some time off. Paid leave. We'll discuss your role on the project when things settle. I hurled my phone across the room. Hey! Anna caught my arm before I could throw my wine glass too. Breathe! They're taking everything, I whispered. My career, my reputation. No, they're trying to. There's a difference. I spent the night on Anna's couch, too drained to drive home. Around midnight, I checked my email. The Woman of the Year committee had regrettably decided to go in a different direction. But buried among the rejections and cancellations was an old email I'd missed. From my father, dated 3 years ago. Dear Fiona, I know we don't say it enough, but thank you for everything you've done since college, for all the times you've helped without being asked. You're a better daughter than we deserve. Love, Dad. I read it 4 times before realising I was crying. The next morning, I drove to the house. My house. It sat empty, windows dark, lawn growing wild. I used my key, stepped inside. The air smelled stale, abandoned. My phone buzzed. Sadie had posted on Instagram, taking some time away. Sometimes family isn't what you thought it was. She'd moved in with friends in another state. I wandered through the rooms, touching walls I'd never paint, looking out windows I'd never dress. This wasn't a victory. It was a mausoleum. A comment notification popped up on my phone. Someone had responded to my latest architecture award announcement. Wonder if she learned manipulation from her designs or her family drama. Dareen fake success, size toxic daughter. It had hundreds of likes. I sat on the stairs in the same spot where I used to hide and listen to my parents plan my future. The same spot where, at 15, I'd overheard my mother tell a friend, "Of course we'll retire comfortably. We invested in Fiona, didn't we?" My phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Fiona?" a woman's voice asked. "I'm from the National Architecture Review. We're doing a piece on women changing the industry landscape. Would you be interested in commenting?" I almost laughed. "About architecture or about my family?" "About resilience," she replied. "About building something lasting in unstable conditions." Before I could respond, another call beeped through, the nursing facility where my father's doctor practiced. "Miss Fiona? Your mother listed you as the emergency contact. Your father's had a mild stroke." The world tilted sideways. I gripped the banister, my knuckles white against the wood. "He's asking for you," the nurse continued. "Will you come?" I looked around the empty house, at the shadows of family photos long removed from the walls, at the space where my mother's favourite vase used to sit, at all the hollow places where love should have been. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sometimes karma comes with a hospital bracelet. My mother stood in the hospital hallway, cigarette smoke clinging to her clothes despite the no smoking signs everywhere. She blocked my path to Dad's room. "Come to finish what you started." Her voice could have frozen hell. Something in me snapped. Years of carefully contained rage burst through the dam. "Move," I said. "Or what? You'll steal my husband like you stole my house." I stepped closer, close enough to see the fear flicker behind her anger. "You want to do this here? Fine, let's do it." "You ungrateful little—" "Ungrateful?" My laugh echoed down the sterile hallway. "For what? The childhood spent managing your finances. The college dreams I gave up. The therapy bills I'll be paying until I'm 60. We gave you everything. You gave me responsibility without authority, guilt without love, obligations without choices." My voice rose with each word. "You wanted loyalty without decency, respect without love. You're not mad that I betrayed you. You're mad I finally learned to mirror you." A nurse poked her head out of a nearby room. "Ladies, please!" My mother's face hardened. "One day you'll need someone, and no one will be left to care. Better alone than trapped in your web of manipulation. Is that what you think this was? We were preparing you for life." "No," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You were preparing your retirement plan. But I was never your investment. I was your daughter. And you couldn't tell the difference." She raised her hand to slap me or gesture, I'll never know, but I caught her wrist mid-air. "Don't," I warned. "I'm not 15 anymore." A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "Miss Fiona, your father's asking for you." I released my mother's wrist and walked past her into Dad's room. He looked small in the hospital bed, tubes snaking from his arms, monitor beeping steadily. "Fee." His voice was weak. "I'm here." "The house." "Don't, Dad. Not now." He shook his head slightly. "Need to say, was wrong. Let her control everything. Wasn't fair." I sank into the chair beside his bed. "Why didn't you ever stop her? Easier to let you handle it. You were always stronger." "I was a child." "I know." His eyes closed. "I know." I left an hour later. My mother was gone, but the scent of her cigarettes lingered. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Damien. "Where are you?" he asked when I called back. "Hospital. Dad had a stroke." "Jesus, Fee, are you okay?" "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because we care about you. And because this vendetta is destroying you." I hung up and drove to the house. My house. The for sale sign in the yard swayed in the evening breeze. I'd listed it yesterday, unable to stomach the thought of living there. Inside, I tried to host an impromptu housewarming for my work friends. They came, brought wine, made awkward conversation, but I couldn't stay overnight. The walls held too many echoes. "Nice place," my colleague Mark said, studying the living room. "Lots of history." If he only knew. After everyone left, I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom. It was empty now, but muscle memory led me to the loose floorboard under the window. I pried it up, reached inside, and pulled out a dusty notebook. My childhood sketches filled the pages. Houses, buildings, entire cities. None of them looked like this prison I'd grown up in. They were full of light, of space, of freedom. A text from Sadie lit up my phone. "Heard about Dad. How is he?" "Alive. Sorry you had to find out from someone else." "I'm staying with Anna. Can we talk?" "About what?" "About how you're living in a house you hate to prove a point to people who'll never understand it." I closed the notebook. "Not tonight, Sade." "Then when?" "This isn't you, Fee. The sister I know builds things. She doesn't destroy them." But maybe this was me. The me they'd created. The me they'd trained to calculate every emotional transaction. To measure love in dollars and cents. My phone buzzed again. The realtor. Someone wanted to view the house tomorrow. "They say it has sentimental value," she wrote. "Some connection to your father's family. I didn't know of any living relatives on Dad's side. He never talked about them." Standing in my empty childhood bedroom, surrounded by ghosts of conversations never had and love never given, I realised something. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was exhausting. And I was so tired. Dad was awake when I visited the next morning, sitting up in bed and attempting to eat hospital jello. His hands shook with each spoonful. "The doctor says it was minor," he said, voice stronger than yesterday. "No permanent damage." I sat in the visitor's chair, watching him struggle with the spoon. Let me help. No. He set the spoon down. I've let others handle things for too long. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the steady beep of monitors. She blamed you, he said finally, from day one, for everything. I know. The mortgage. The house. He closed his eyes. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. Then why did you let it happen? Because I was weak. He opened his eyes, met mine directly for perhaps the first time in my life. Because it was easier to let her direct her anger at you than face it myself. I felt tears building, but refused to let them fall. I was your daughter. You were, and I failed you. He reached for my hand. The house. Do what you want with it. It was never really a home anyway. That's when I broke. Not in grief, but in mourning for everything that never was. Every I love you never spoken. Every hug never given. Every moment of protection I should have had, but didn't. I listed it for sale, I said through tears. He nodded. Good. Outside his room, my mother stood smoking in the hospital parking lot, breaking at least 3 regulations. Our eyes met through the glass doors. We didn't speak. Just stared at each other across the distance of decades of damage. My phone buzzed. The realtor again. The potential buyer is here. Can you meet us at the house? I drove there slowly, trying to compose myself. A black SUV was parked in the driveway when I arrived. An older man stepped out, his face oddly familiar. Miss Fiona? He extended his hand. I'm Robert Franklin. Franklin? I frowned. Like my father's. I'm his brother, well, half-brother. The world tilted sideways. Dad doesn't have a brother. According to your mother, no. He smiled sadly. But families are complicated things, aren't they? We walked through the house together. Robert touched walls, looked at empty spaces where pictures used to hang, paused in doorways. I used to visit, he said, when you were very young, before your mother decided I was a bad influence on Norman. I don't remember. You wouldn't. You were maybe 3 when she banned me, said I encouraged Norman's wasteful dreams of starting his own business. We reached the kitchen. Why do you want the house? Because it's the last piece of my father, your grandfather, that exists. And because... He hesitated. Because I followed your career. Those buildings you design, the way you use space and light, that's pure Franklin DNA. Our father was an architect too. I sank into a kitchen chair. Dad never told me. Your mother wouldn't let him. Said it would give you unrealistic expectations about life. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Dad's quiet support of my architecture dreams. The hidden sketches he used to leave on my desk. The sadness in his eyes when Mum redirected my college plans. I'll pay asking price, Robert said. And I'd like to get to know my niece, if you're willing. I looked around the kitchen one last time. Here was where Mom used to calculate my obligations, where Dad used to silently drink his coffee, where I learned that love came with compound interest. Yes, I said, to both. Walking out, I noticed an envelope taped to the front door. Inside was a letter from Sadie. Fee. Found this in Mum's closet while packing her things. Thought you should have it. S. It was a photograph I'd never seen before. Me at maybe 2 years old, sitting on a younger Robert's shoulders, both of us laughing. Behind us, Dad smiled. A real smile, not the worn-down version I grew up with. My phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Dad was being released tomorrow. I looked at Robert, still examining the house's bones with an architect's eye. Would you like to meet your brother for coffee tomorrow? He turned, eyes bright. More than anything. Standing in the driveway, watching Robert drive away, I realised something. Revenge hadn't freed me, but the truth had. I pulled out my phone and dialed Sadie's number. It was time to build something new from the ashes of what our parents had burned. The house could go. The hurt could stay buried in its foundations, but the future, that was still under construction. And this time, I was the architect. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for my new architecture firm brought unexpected guests. Sadie stood in the front row, actually smiling. Behind her, Robert chatted with potential clients, his architect's eye already assessing the renovated warehouse space. Ready? Anna squeezed my arm, scissors in hand. I surveyed the crowd, no sign of my mother, not that I'd expected her. She'd moved to Florida after the divorce, leaving scorched earth behind her. Dad stood near the back, leaning on his cane. Our eyes met, and he nodded slightly. The ribbon fell. Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. "Lopez Architectural Design," Sadie read from the wall. "Has a nice ring to it. Want to see something cool?" I led her to my office, where blueprints covered the walls. "Remember that summer program I couldn't attend? The one about sustainable urban housing? The one Mom made you skip? I'm designing those houses now. Affordable, eco-friendly family homes. The first development breaks ground next month." Sadie traced the blueprints with her finger. "They're beautiful, Fee." They're everything that house wasn't. A knock at the door, Dad holding an envelope. "Got a minute?" Sadie moved to leave, but I caught her arm. "Stay." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a cheque for exactly half the proceeds from selling the house. "I can't take this," I said. "You can, and you will." His voice was stronger now, though his hands still shook sometimes. "It should have been yours from the start." "Dad!" "I've been seeing a therapist," he interrupted. "Learning to say things I should have said years ago, like, 'I'm sorry,' and 'I'm proud of you,' and 'I love you.'" Sadie made a small sound like a stifled sob. "Both of you," he added, turning to her. "I love both of you." I looked at the cheque again. "What about your medical bills?" "Robert's helping with those. Says it's what brothers do." He smiled. That real smile from the old photograph. "Turns out family doesn't have to hurt." The office door opened again, my assistant. "Sorry to interrupt, but the reporter from Architectural Digest is here." "Send her in." The reporter was young, notebook ready. "Ms. Lopez, your story has captivated many in the industry. Rising star architect, family drama, redemption. How do you respond to those who say you built your success on betrayal?" I met her gaze steadily. "I'd say they're half right. I built my success on truth. The truth that love shouldn't come with conditions, that family isn't just DNA and debt, that sometimes you have to tear down old foundations to build something stronger. And your parents? My mother taught me how to calculate human worth down to the penny. My father taught me, too late, that some things can't be measured. I'm building something different now. After the interview, I found Robert studying my blueprints. "These remind me of Dad's work," he said. "He would have loved them." "Tell me about him." "Over dinner. Your sister and father should hear these stories too." That evening, sitting in my downtown apartment with Sadie, Dad and Robert, I realised something. Revenge hadn't been the answer. It had just been the demolition phase. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "Saw your firm's opening online. You always were ungrateful. Hope you're happy with your stolen success." I deleted it without responding. Some buildings aren't worth saving. "Fee?" Sadie called from my balcony. "Come look at this." The sunset painted the city gold, glinting off windows and steel. Below us, people hurried home to their own stories, their own foundations. "Remember when we were kids?" Sadie asked. "How you used to draw cities in your notebooks?" "Yeah." "You're building them now, for real." Dad joined us, Robert beside him. 4 people connected by blood and choice, watching the city darken into twilight. "I got another commission today," I said. "Women's shelter. They want something beautiful but strong, safe." "Like you," Sadie whispered. I looked at my family, the real one, built on truth instead of transactions. The one I chose, and who chose me back. My phone buzzed again. "Anna, drinks later? Damien's in town." "Can't," I texted back. "Family dinner." The words felt right this time. Clean, true. I was never their retirement plan. I was never their investment. I was always my own legacy. And finally, wonderfully, that was enough. "So," Robert said, pulling out old photographs, "want to hear about the time your grandfather designed a house that everyone said was impossible to build?" We gathered around my kitchen table, not the one where deals were made and debts were counted, but one where stories were shared and wounds began to heal. "Yes," I said. "Tell us everything."